Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Hash It Out. My name is Justin Moorhead. I'm here with my buddy Mitch Evans, and very exciting episode today because we just started a new sermon series. We are preaching through the book of James, Yamez, the Jimmy, the book of the Bible we started last week, or yesterday, this week. So what we do on Hatch It Out is we'd like to talk through the most recent sermon that was preached and its implications and applications, just have an edifying conversation about that. So the book of James starts out, count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds. So we're talking about trials today, in particular what it means to endure those trials. And one of the first things that I think is important just to set our conversation that was helpful for me, kind of a new take on it for me, is this idea that trials and tragedies, we shouldn't require our trials to be tragic, to consider them a trial. Is that right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, James doesn't mention tragedies in his letter.
Yes. Oh, in all the other.
Yeah, all 5 chapters. He describes them as trials, no tragedies.
No tragedies. Why is that an important clarifying distinction to make?
I would say the number one reason is because if we define it as tragedy, we're only going to pursue the joy that he says here and the completeness that he says can be developed in us in tragedies. And we're going to miss 90%. Most of life is not tragic. Right? We don't just have perpetual tragedy typically. So
James is wanting us to be able to do something on a regular basis.
Yep.
So if you get a couple tragedies in a lifetime, James wants us to exercise this principle more than a couple times in our life. Is that right?
Yes. So the trial is also called testing. Not test in the sense of prove yourself. It's test in the sense of produce something in your life. So I think it's a helpful distinction. So the way he's using vocabulary here, we insert all kinds of unhelpful things. We don't read James for James. We hear trial, we insert tragedy.
Right.
And then we believe test means in this tragedy, I need to prove something.
Yes.
And he's saying, no, a trial is when you have a difficult personality.
Yeah.
A trial is when you feel that you're of lower economic status than most of your peers at church. A trial is, right, he just goes on down the list, and he says how you engage with these trials is a test that produces instead of proves.
Right.
Is the way he's using it. It produces completeness in your life if you will work with the way the tool of a trial is intended.
Right. And so the idea is to endure that trial. So this idea of completeness, well, it says steadfastness is what's going to be produced. Yep. You pointed out in the sermon, endurance is a good word, steadfastness, endurance. But that's how the completion comes about, is when we endure. Is that right? Endurance
is step 1. So he gives a 2-step process, which is helpful. It's good for me, only 2 steps. I could never dance, right? So you break it down to it's these two steps. The step 1 is endure the trial. Be steadfast through the trial. Keep the faith through the trial. You're dealing with a difficult personality. Consistently engage with them in a way that expresses your faith. That's to endure the trial. Make it through. Then he says, let the endurance, the steadfastness, let that have its effect. So as we referenced, let is unhelpful because let is usually passive.
Right.
You let something happen to you. It's an active command. So it'd be better to say, make it have in the English terminology. It's just hard to translate from Greek to English in a one-to-one fashion. So make the steadfastness have its effect of rendering you complete, a wholeness in your life.
So if I'm in a trial, not a tragedy, just a normal trial, and I'm like, I got to endure this. This is really what I'm called to, is I'm going to endure this trial. And I am motivated by this completion idea. I'm going to be made a whole person. So I want to do it. This idea that I'm supposed to make this endurance have the intended effect in my life. All I can envision is that while I'm enduring it, I'm going like really just straining. But I'm sure that's not what it means. What does it mean? How can I make it have effect?
Yes. I think there's 2 things. One is, if I'm tracking with you, what does it look like to endure it?
Yeah.
Is it just grit your teeth?
Sure, like
right?
get through it.
I hope somebody listens to this in audio and all they got was it sounded like a bad bathroom experience. But I think part one is it's 2 steps, as James said.
Yeah.
It sounds like you were talking about both. I would say that endure part is something to contend with. What does it mean to endure? Work through that idea. Mm-hmm. And then how do you let it have is a secondary component. So if we do the endure first.
Sure. See if we can get
somebody
through this.
might have, yeah. Endure boredom. That's one of the trials. Somebody might have a bad marriage.
Yeah.
And they say, I need to endure in this marriage. I don't feel like divorce is appropriate as a Christian. So, but endure sounds miserable when we're talking about a marriage. So what does this look like to keep the faith in my marriage? Mm-hmm. I think on the onset, people think, okay, keep the faith in my marriage means don't have a relationship outside of my marriage. That's how you keep the faith in your marriage. That would fall short of endure. I think what happens if you try anything in life, and endurance is a key component. So sometimes you have like marathon runners, which I've never run a marathon. I walked a 5K once.
There you go. There you go.
The only thing I've ever done long distance is bicycle race, and it was 42 miles mountain biking. What I thought was I had in my mind what it's going to entail to endure this. And I've referenced this before, is on the one hand you think, okay, I should be a good bike rider. But then I tried to develop some thoughts ahead of time for what this should entail. Mm-hmm. So as I get extremely tired, I need to make sure to stay focused. Yeah. And I knew that I needed to you need to hydrate along the way. I mean, some basic things. Some things I didn't account for, and so that through the experience and just at that time, just raw determination, I'm going to finish.
Right.
Was a great teacher, and so it taught me a handful of things. It taught me that hydration matters more the day before the race than the day of the race. Oh. So you got to hydrate ahead of time. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Found that out the hard way. That you need to plan enough food that, in my instance, you're on a 45-minute kind of nutrition cycle. I didn't bring enough food to eat, little like snack type stuff on the way.
Right.
So I had plenty of access to water as we went. Mm-hmm. That was insufficient for being on a bicycle for 5 hours does to your body, and especially
you need less water, more food.
And you need to be in shape, but I'm ignoring that piece.
Because you were determined.
I was very determined.
Yeah.
So you find along the way, okay, this is what it means to endure.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to stop and stretch. I'm going to have to eat regularly. I need to prep the day before, all these kind of things. I would say very similarly, before you get into a trial, there is some prep work that's very helpful. Mm-hmm. It's not always the case. Sometimes you just grit your teeth and make it through.
Sure.
Just determination. When I'm in it, so if I'm in this bad marriage, I'm going to start. One thing I think people find often, as I've tried to work with folks in bad marriages, is they start to question why they got in this to begin with. Is really, really, really common, and so they think back on: did I marry the right person? Was this my soulmate? I think I was actually probably more in love with somebody else, but everybody else was getting engaged when I got out of college, and I got asked to marry this guy, and I did, and we're married, but was just probably doing it because that's what all my friends were doing. I want to be in their weddings. I want to be in my wedding. All these other reasons. So I think it's to recognize some things. So when it comes to, did you marry the right person? If you're a Christian, I'm going to answer this for Christians. I think it's true elsewhere. Yeah. Make specific with Christians. The short answer is you married your soulmate. Mm-hmm. You married the one God intended you to marry. You did not marry the wrong person, and now you're stuck with the consequences of that. Sure. We have a sovereign God. Right. The way we determine if somebody is our soulmate is through the rearview mirror instead of the windshield. So I don't see my soulmate coming. I realize this is the person I've married. Mm-hmm. Therefore, that was God's sovereign plan for my life. So therefore, I am married to my soulmate. So if you're married, it's to your soulmate. Correct. Yeah. 100%. So those sorts of things also compel you in the endurance process. So I need to, okay, if I'm really married to my soulmate, start treating it as such.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
So on the one hand, it's an endurance tool.
Right.
On the other hand, it produces a better marriage. If I'm just questioning all the time, should I have even gotten into this to begin with?
Yeah.
I'm not pursuing my partner as I should be.
Yeah.
So those things are what it actually looks like to endure, to stick with this, to keep the faith. So the faith is saying, pursue your spouse as your soulmate. Love the spouse of your youth, gets said multiple times in the Bible. So hopefully that's helpful on the endure. I think endure, you're going to learn to cultivate skills that help you endure, even in the midst of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And then the other piece is this making the endurance.
Yes, sorry, I left it off. Thank you.
No, that's the enduring's fine. I want to know how to make this work.
I was having nightmares from that bicycle ride.
Cramping up.
Not from my marriage.
Phantom cramping. Yes.
Phantom. Yeah, I don't even know what that means, really, to be honest. I'm sure it's a thing.
Yes.
I don't know.
You know, like phantom pain if you're like an amputee?
Oh, I thought it was like you fake a cramp.
Well, no, I think it's
to
like
get a timeout in a sport.
like an amputee will feel a pain in a limb
I
they
got
don't
you.
have.
Okay,
So you're not in the race, but you still feel the cramp because of the PTSD or something.
Yeah.
It's
Just
like
in
a
case the
phantom.
shot's not wide enough. I have all my limbs. There's no opportunity for phantom cramping.
That's true.
I haven't had more mean than I probably am healthy to have. So it's all there. On the making it, so he does say make it. He says let is a common translation, but it's make it have its full effect. Really involves the very next verse. After that, so he says, make it have this. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God. So making the connection between kept the faith and I endured, how does that make me more like Christ? And I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know what this is supposed to be accomplishing.
Is this like, so I'm in a trial, right? That I'm making the connection while I'm in the trial, while I'm enduring and trying to do the things that I need to do as I endure well, making the connection that this is for the Lord. I'm doing, like, is that kind of the making it for it to not just, because a lot of times we can go through life and something tough comes up and you just sort of thoughtlessly endure, where you're like, what am I going to do except just go through it? You got to put your shoes on, and get up and keep going. But you're not actually making a connection that this is intended for something in my life. So is that part of the making it, just making the connection?
I think that's an initial piece.
Intentionally enduring?
You have to make the connection.
So it's an intentional endurance.
It's an intentional endurance that's supposed to have an outcome.
Right.
And the outcome is I look more like Jesus. I have more of the fruit in my life. I have more of the character of Jesus in my life.
Sure.
So I'll give you an easy one Paul does. Paul says, if you've been stealing, you instead of making an honest living, you've been stealing. He says, go get a job. Stop stealing. Learn to endure in this. So that you can be generous. So some people would stop at, I've got a job.
Yeah.
I've got a job. I don't steal anymore. I provide for myself. And in fact, I provide for myself pretty handsomely.
Right.
He's saying, nope, you've missed it. You shouldn't have just stopped at get a job and endure, right? Earn a living in a way that keeps the faith.
Sure.
It's for the result of you should have become a generous person. So instead of taking from people, you should be lavishly giving to others, not yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that's what is also being talked about in James. So he's saying, endurance, if you just stop at it, some people would just stop at endurance and they'll say, phew, glad I made it through that.
Right.
Some people will stop at endurance and actually kind of end up bitter that I had to go through that.
Yeah.
So he's saying, you make it have this next effect. I realize I'm going to choose to be a generous person. I'm not just going to get a job. I'm going to make this additional choice based upon this. Okay, I've endured. I've gotten through this. I've paid off my bills. I've paid off those people I owe.
Yeah.
I've gotten through that trial. I'm to a pretty settled spot, steady income. So he says, now this should have this additional effect. So make it have, so it is make it. Choose that this will be the outcome. Sometimes that's going to be as literal as I'm now generous. I try to give more. Sometimes it's going to be more character development.
Sure.
I'm going to choose to be more compassionate, which certainly would have a
because I guess there's, in some situations, in some trials, there's a self-inflicted kind of, it's not just the cards I've been dealt. So I can think, in my life, there was a time I was a mouth tobacco user, a very sweet and unhealthy time in my past. It was lovely, but it wasn't good.
What other
smoking tobaccos, mouth tobaccos,
organs do people use for tobacco?
Well, like smoking tobacco.
Okay.
Versus mouth
all
tobacco.
The ones I knew.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would imagine
eyeball tobacco.
The majority of people listening to this podcast,
they knew the insider language.
They know it's dip. It's just what you call it, dip. That's what it is. I was a dipper.
No, that made sense to me.
Yeah, I dipped.
The good old boy from Tennessee.
Yes. So the dipping, I thought this isn't good for the sake of obedience. The Bible says, "Don't be mastered by something other than Christ." This has mastery over me, so I need to stop, which was hard. I mean, it's hard to quit dipping. But when it's the self and the choosing, like I'm gonna bring this on myself. So there's an intentional nature to it in that sense, and all the while of enduring, it's for the sake of obedience or being more like Christ, being formed in this particular way. So I think maybe in some senses there are things that can happen to us in life, but then as Christians, there's also that repentance and turning from sin and turning towards Christ is going to be a trial. I mean, typically that's not an easy thing to do, but something where endurance is, for the sake of Christ likeness, is sort of the implied motivation. That's the goal, you know?
Yeah, so see, I'm going to try to carry it full circle maybe.
Yeah.
I very much respect that. Would have been a very difficult thing to do, to stick with this, and then, if I'm following you, out of a Christian conviction.
Yeah.
Not like got mouth cancer or something.
Sure,
that
yes.
forced me, right?
Exactly,
Forced my hand. So, Christian conviction, I want to stop using tobacco. And I imagine there was a lot of endurance.
Yeah, sure.
There, right? I'm a little grouchy or whatever. It's not that I noticed you being grouchy, right?
A lot of sunflower seeds.
There you go, yeah. So I found ways to push through this. Then what is the thing that was the outworking of that? How did you make you more complete? Character development? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was a sense in which you realize, like, you start depending on the Lord for things you depended on dip for in the prior, which seems maybe like a silly thing to say. Like, how could you make? But I mean, this is the thing I'm gonna console myself with. It's the thing I look forward to. It's the thing that is gonna, whatever the thing is when you're using dip or something like that. I think for me, that was one of the things I realized that I didn't. I just thought kind of initially, I'm not supposed to be mastered by something. I'm addicted to dip. So I need to not do that anymore. But then all the while you start to realize, what does it mean that I'm addicted to this thing? It means that I'm engaged. I have a relationship with this thing that if I can remove it from my life, there's just more, I have more real estate for a relationship with the Lord. So I think that was a thing that was formed in that time.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. More personal in here. I am cracking jokes about.
No, it's fine. Tobacco. Yeah, it's okay. That's right. Well, anything else on endurance and trials?
No.
Trials. Yeah. Well, folks, we hope you've endured this edition of Hash It Out. We hope to see you next time. Same bat channel, same bat time.